the director and writer of Dark Phoenix, Simon Kinberg, and producer, Hutch Parker. Okay, so we wanted to warm these nice people up.
Okay.
Before we show them what you guys have to show them, what you're going to love. And so let's jump in kind of right at the beginning of all of this, because as an X-Men fan, I've been teased before. Okay? I fixed my hair today in what I hoped was the best Dark Phoenix style I could.
You did a very good job.
Thank you. My name is Gray. Also, I get really mad sometimes.
It's spelled right, your last name, but...
It's close enough. Thanks for pointing that out. And, and so, what made this the moment to finally give this storyline its own film?
A lot of things. I think one, the climate for these kinds of movies allows for the drama, the intensity, the character-driven nature of what a Dark Phoenix story needs to be. After we did Logan, after all of the different things that are happening in the genre now. And we felt like after the last X-Men movie we made, Apocalypse, which was huge in scale and scope, we wanted to actually tell a story that could do that, but could really be also intimate at the same time. And the Dark Phoenix story is this intimate story about, as you know and you all know, a central character in Jean who starts to lose control. And that's all it is, really. It happens to manifest as superpowers in huge destructive ways, but it is about someone who loses control and the people who love her. Some of them want to save her, some of them want to save the world from her. And so it fractures this family around her as she herself is fracturing. So for me as a writer, as an artist, as a filmmaker, telling that story after Logan, telling that story after we had gone huge on Apocalypse, it just felt like the right time to tell it.
That, as somebody who has visited these movies in the theater since they were starting in the 2000s, I think that what keeps being exciting for me is that they all feel different. Like, that's the secret to the sequel. And so Hutch, especially when you're considering, you were mentioning Logan, Simon, when you're considering something like Logan, would you liken this Dark Phoenix story to anything else? Like, is there, or if not, what kind of subgenre of movie would this belong to? Because we already, I can kind of tell it's not, based on what you guys are going to see in a minute, it's not just an action X-Men movie.
Yeah, no, I don't know that I would liken it to any other movie, not that I can think of. And I guess it'd be a weird mix between a family drama and, to some degree, I guess, a science fiction story. You've got elements of both. But as you point out, it's very clear to us who, one, the underlying material to all of this, to the X-Men universe is pretty incredible. And for all the character-based reasons that Simon was saying, but also because the thematics are so rich, they're so powerful and relatable and important. So with that, you feel an obligation to try to reach deeper into the material. And I think, as Simon alluded to, there's a lot of great work being done in this arena, and the table felt like it had been well set to do what Simon has long wanted to do, which is to do a kind of deep dive on Dark Phoenix and do it more thoroughly and more substantively and with much more detail and nuance. And that was exciting to all of us, to the actors, to myself, I think. Certainly to Fox, so it came up organically, I guess. Best way to describe it.
When I think about what we've seen of this so far, which is way too little, by the way, guys, just a note.
We don't disagree.
I always go back to Logan because it's so personal, because, my husband was crying. Do not tell him that I told you that. But it's such an emotional story. So when you were working with the studio, did doing the huge Apocalypse movie paved the way for this? They were like, yeah, man, you can make this one more of a family drama.
They're very trusting of us in general because we've made so many of these movies now. So they like when we zig after we've zagged on these films. And I think Logan helped pave the way, actually. And the other part of this film, and you'll see some of it in what we're going to show you, is that what Marvel Studios has done in terms of making these movies extraterrestrial, taking them into space with Guardians, with Thor Ragnarok, with the Avengers movies, allowed for us to tell the Dark Phoenix story not just in the dramatic, grounded, emotional ways that we're talking about, that Logan does, but to also go to outer space, to also have alien characters. And I think that's why when you asked Hutch what the genre is, it's tough to pinpoint what it is, because it is a combination of something like Logan that is a drama, I mean a Western, but really a drama, and something that is larger and more cosmic, for lack of a better description. It is truly science fiction. Jessica Chastain plays an alien character in the movie, and there are scenes in outer space, and you couldn't have had that in Logan. You couldn't have had NextJet in Logan. Nobody wears uniforms in Logan. So it is a larger canvas than something like Logan, but in its intention, it has that kind of intensity and that kind of emotionality, and I hope that it makes your husband cry.
Would you like to set up what you brought for everybody today?
Sure.
Perfect segue.
Okay. So
My husband crying.
I don't know if this part will make your husband cry because it's early in the movie. You guys are the first to see actual continuous footage from this film. We're going to show you about, I think, 13, 14 minutes. And it is early in the film. At the beginning of the movie, the X-Men are the X-Men that I'm sure a lot of you know from the comics, where they are actually known to the world and actually, for lack of a less generic term, superheroes. And you see them on a mission, and we see part of what starts to create the fracture in Jean. So it's got big action, it's also got the drama and the emotion in it. The only things I will say, in addition to don't fill in on your phone, that you heard already, is that the visual effects are obviously not finished. The movie doesn't come out until next summer. But they will give you a sense of what it'll look like. The music is composed by Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
He said after, I forgot which of the DC movies, that he would never do another superhero movie, and we convinced him to come back and do this, and the big part of why we convinced him is because of the drama that we're talking about. But even that music is not finished, and it isn't recorded the way that it'll be ultimately recorded. So just know that you're seeing a movie in process, but you are seeing a big chunk of that movie in process. And I hope you dig it.
It's a good thing the mic wasn't on in that moment, because all I said was, ooh! What a great note to end on. You might have noticed we have 2 empty chairs here at the end. So guys, come on back up, and everybody welcome Sophie Turner, Ty Sheridan! Sophie, official blanket apology, just in case I accidentally ever go, hey, Jean.
That's okay.
Yeah. But at what point were you told that this is going to be Dark Phoenix, therefore centering on your character, finally? The finally was from the fans. I was speaking for us.
I was told about 6 months before we started shooting the movie. Simon kind of took me to lunch and sat me down and told me what the movie was going to be, that it was going to be Dark Phoenix, what that meant for preparation. And luckily he gave me enough time to prepare. But it was a big undertaking and a lot of pressure, but also such an honor because I know that the fans are so in love with this storyline, and I really think that we did it justice.
Let's bookmark the preparation that you did. Don't let me forget about going back to that. But tie down there at the end, when we're telling a story about Jean, we're also telling a story about you as well, you know, about Scott. And I'm just going to keep saying you, because you guys are these people. So when you first read the script, you know, I know there's not a lot that you can necessarily reveal, but where was the emotion for you?
Well, I think I was just excited that we were taking a crack at something that was a bit more grounded and a bit more human, if you will, even though we're all mutants. But it was really exciting because, as you can see, I mean, this is pretty early on in the movie, and that's kind of the central, instance where things start to change when you see what just happened in space. But yeah, I think after things start to unravel throughout the film, suddenly my character is encountering. He's lost the love of his life, and she's lost control of herself, and that's a really hard thing to grasp and swallow. And so I think it even splits the X-Men up. So there's a lot of conflict in this movie between the X-Men, and I think that so you see a bit of fragility that you haven't seen in Scott in the past in some of these films, and that was really exciting for me.
Hutch, can you talk about how right now might be the perfect time for us to finally have the story? Like socially, like on a larger scale? Because you kind of can't ignore that kind of thing now. Information flows so freely.
Yeah, I think that's part of what makes these movies so resonant in general, specifically the X-Men movies, is because they deal so directly with alienation and prejudice and issues that certainly seem inescapable in the news these days. And it's no accident, I think, that Simon wanted to tell this story and has empowered the female characters in this story in the ways that he has, which is it's not to say politically, it's just a natural cultural instinct, and that's part of what I'll say it as a producer, is that you look for in your filmmakers are people who can see in the underlying material the possibilities to both create relatable circumstances as human beings, but also create relatable metaphors for what's happening in the culture. And this story is uniquely powerful in that regard, and I would say that the choice Simon made in terms of how he's told this story is perhaps even more so.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what good sci-fi does. It reflects your real world and helps you understand more about it through a story that might be a little more palatable, perhaps. Oh, well, can't wait. And finally, you're directing.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. You're like, yes.
Yes. It was great fun. And, I've been writing and producing for many, many years now. And I've worked with lots of different kinds of filmmakers, not just in the X-Men movies, but they've spanned from filmmakers that needed an immense amount of help, and so I got to sort of...
Ooh, which ones? Tell us everything.
Much of it is on record already, so you just Google it.
Not now, because you don't have your phones.
No, but so I've got to sort of practice direct on some big feature movies with directors who, let's say, were very collaborative. And then I've also got to just sit back and watch people like Ridley Scott and Ken Branagh, and Guy Ritchie and Matthew Vaughn, and lots of great filmmakers who treated me like a partner, and at the very least allowed me to be present for the process. So I learned a lot. I mean, I learned a lot from watching Ridley direct, especially the way he interacted with the actors, the respect he had for them, and the way he was collaborative with them, especially for someone like that, who doesn't need to be collaborative with anybody, because he's Ridley Scott. And yet he understands that he's part of what's so great about making movies is, and especially when you get to make them with great people, and the best of the best, you have an opportunity to take all of that talent, harness it together, and create something that's greater than anything you could have done on your own. And with this cast especially, if I came to you and said I have a drama or a comedy or any kind of movie or science fiction movie with Ty Sheridan and Sophie Turner and Jessica Chastain and Jennifer Lawrence and Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy, you'd be like, that's the greatest cast ever. And they're in a superhero movie. So for me, what was exciting about directing, in addition to just being able to create the tone of the set and the tone of the movie, which I think is in some ways the biggest responsibility of the director, is creating tone, was to play with these actors in a different way, and to really get in there and collaborate with them and sort of tailor lines to them and listen to their cadences and the way that they spoke and find their strengths, and play to them.
So, real talk then, having been in another X-Men movie, how was the experience different this time around with Simon as the director, kind of working with you and taking the performance apart and building it up in this particular way? Just pretend like he's not here.
He's definitely much more engaged and focused all around.
It has to be cool because so much of the movie is not, it's non-existent when you're shooting it. You know, it's perhaps an effect later, something like that. I'm sure it helps.
Yeah, sometimes, but I think a lot of times, this story is so grounded in drama that that's what it's about. So it's innate in the script and in the writing, and I think for us it was just nice to have someone guiding us and leading us, and it's a big movie. You really need somebody who can really hone in on a vision and be really specific about every little detail. Because if you get one element that's not right, some things start to kind of wander off kilter. And I think in this film, Simon did such a great job. I know he's a first-time director, and it's crazy to me to think that he accomplished what he did in this film. And we all believed in him so much. I don't think there was ever a doubt from any of the crew or the cast. It was from day one. It was like, we were backing this guy, and we knew he could do it. So. It was overall, I think this film was much more pleasing to make.